You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
How firm thy friendship. Oh, how
you know what time it is. Come brawl with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lames. Yeah, you know what time it is. Come brawl with them boys of the fall. Covered in gray and scarlet, massive, stiff arms to your jaw. We breaking it. We sick of seeing you clowns with the crown. We taking it.
Yo, what is up, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to Buckeye Boys. I'm your girl TG. This is my boy Sean. How you doing, Sean?
What up, TG? Doing great here. How about you?
Like I told you before, I had a trying day today. As I'm excited to start the show, then stupid stuff just starts happening and it gets on my nerves. And by the way, Dev, I'm kind of sorry for bothering you, but I did need your help. So if you're listening anyway.
Thank you, Dev.
Yeah, thanks for helping. So what we're going to talk about today is massive Buckeye. Well, not even just Buckeyes, it's just massive football talk, which does involve the Buckeyes. We're going to start discussing the I'm going to rip on Maze Madman today for his little video he made about the team up north being the Blue Blood program. I'm going to rip into that and show him why that is not true and how that is far from the truth. We're also going to discuss a little bit of Penn State, the latest news surrounding the Buckeyes as well, but also news surrounding them involving the NFL when it comes down to our Buckeyes in the NFL. But first, before we do that, the big one I'm going to rant on is a guy who supposedly calls himself a Buckeye fan. The guy I'm gonna rag on, and let me pull this up. His name is Big Buckeye something. I'm gonna pull up his name, but I watched a video regarding Juck's show on CJ Hicks. It's a little video he did. In the video he did discuss whether or not CJ Hicks is just a combo guy who isn't good because he may be a good tester, but he might not be great on the field. I tended to disagree with him on that one, respectfully, because I understand where he's coming from. And he basically brings up the fact that CJ Hicks has been playing the same position for 3 years, hasn't really shown much. I think this year he showed a lot more than what he's shown previously, but that's only because they've actually used him to blitz more than playing traditional linebacker. But I put in a comment that I completely disagree with him. And I disagree with him because I think what he said about CJ Hicks is what we said about Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, and Jerome Baker. That's what I always thought.
If you remember, there was Justin Hilliard also, who was another guy like that. That was, kind of not a combo guy, but what they call a tweener.
Yeah, pretty much. Between,
a linebacker and a defensive end. Thing with CJ is he came from a smaller school. And he dominated the competition, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're good, you're good. It doesn't matter what competition you come from.
Yep.
But he had a real issue playing linebacker, reading his keys.
Because he doesn't understand it. It's a mental thing with him, not a physical. Because when you talk to people within the Buckeyes organization, they said it's not a physical problem with CJ. The dude can absolutely play it. The problem is he mentally does not understand it. He just doesn't get it. So now they're starting to do with him what they should have been doing for the past 3 years, because all of us could tell he wasn't comfortable playing linebacker. He doesn't know it. But the Buckeye fan I want to rant on, his name is Big Buckeye 6789. Because apparently this jackass thinks he knows more than football than I do and was being an a-hole in the comment section. So I decided to respond to this douchebag because he says it's simple. Google. You will show how wrong you are. And my response was, I'm not wrong. I know what I'm talking about. Like, I was around when these guys were playing.
Yeah.
It's not hard to see that. And I said, what is this response you're on today? And obviously he's going on the whole, like, if you guys know how Michigan fans sound, right? When they're making excuses and then they're trying to tell you to go Google it and do this, that, and the other. Here's my biggest. This is exactly what he was doing. I'm not even going to bother reading these process because it sounds like a Michigan fan. It literally do. This is what I had to respond to him as far as with one of the comments he made. If I'm not mistaken, he actually made a comment that Jerome Baker didn't play linebacker at Ohio State. And I'm like, are you serious?
He was a linebacker, defensive end / He's kind of like what's
kind of like a tweener, but then we mostly playing him
Yeah.
at linebacker. Like I watched, he was mostly playing a linebacker than he was an edge rusher.
Yeah, he's playing
And-
linebacker a lot.
Yeah, so when I brought this up to this attention to tell this douchebag that, dude, you don't know what you talk about, because with all the numbers that I have, and more importantly, with all the research I've done, I have seen that literally CJ Hicks is a lot like those three. At Ohio State, they never reached their fullest potential because they were forced to play traditional linebacker because it was a spot that Ohio State needed more so. And then, when Ohio State kind of started playing them a little bit more, when they had their most production is when Ohio State was playing them the way they should have been, which is like getting them the blitz, getting them to just think less and do more. More I put it.
See, that was the problem with Sonny also at the beginning of the year. He was thinking too much.
Yeah, that's
when you know your stuff and you can just react and play fast, that's when you're at your best. And if you're thinking too much, you're playing slow, you're a step behind, you don't pick it up right away, you're thinking too much, you're always going to be a step behind. And that's what was happening to Sonny at the beginning. And you saw it. He got comfortable and he was just reacting. He could just go. And he was comfortable. He knew everything. CJ never got that way.
He never got that way because he doesn't get it.
Exactly. CJ needs to be a situational pass rusher. Put him in on the 3rd and longs. Blitz him in different areas of the, put him on different parts of the field and blitz him. That's where he's best at right now, because some people say make him a defensive end. Well, he'll have to put on some weight if he wants to play the edge for 3 downs. For 4 downs.
Honestly, he could be like Baron Browning, because that's how it started off for him. In the NFL, they started him off as just a situational pass rusher. Then they developed him into a multiple pass rusher, got more weight on him to do that as well. It's the same thing with Abdul Carter at Penn State. My biggest talking point with this argument was, we've seen this with those 3 repeated times. I've even got CJ Hicks's numbers where if you look at his first legit 2 years at Ohio State, he didn't do anything. His 3rd year, he was just by a mile, he was way more productive, even though he had 10 solo tackles, 12 assistant, 2 sacks. More productive than what he did. And he also had a pass. I don't know what a PD is. I forgot what that means. What do you remember what that means?
PE?
PD.
PD, pass defended.
Yeah, that's it. He only had that. Yeah, he had that one, but that's because he came in kind of, with the D-line when they
block pass, basically. Yeah,
pretty much. So this is the most productive he's been, because from in certain ways of what I've seen, I literally think to myself that CJ Hicks is just not used the way he should be. And that's Ohio State's fault, because I would agree with Juck if Ohio State didn't have the history of messing this up. Because I believe if CJ Hicks went to Penn State, went to LSU, went to Bama, he'd be a superstar right now. Because look at the linebacker from his 2022 class. They literally are the same linebackers. But the difference is LSU knew how to use him. Every linebacker like Abdul Carter, Chop Robinson, Micah Parsons, even TJ Watt, freaking like I said, LSU's linebacker that they got in the same class is CJ and Sonny, freaking Will Anderson Jr. Those guys are all like CJ Hicks. They have the same skill set. Like Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, Jerome Baker, they all have the same skill set. The problem is Ohio State doesn't always know how to set these guys up for success. They try to force these type of linebackers to play positions they don't play. Yep. They're not your traditional dudes. They are legit just pretty much your in-between type guys. He's an outside linebacker. That's what CJ is. He's not your traditional edge rusher. He's not your traditional freaking linebacker. He's an outside guy, and he's more effective rushing than he is playing linebacker. He can be effective in the pass if you do with him what you did with JT and Jack. You do that, he'll be more effective. If you don't, he's just going to keep struggling.
The problem is he's kind of like you see this in the NFL a lot when they play the 3-4 defense. He'd be a 3-4 outside linebacker, basically a defensive end who pass rushes. I mean, he would have been the perfect Jack position, but we don't have the Jack anymore. So,
it doesn't have to be he could be like what TJ Watt and them are doing in the NFL, because they are lining up on the edge and still doing what they do. He could just do that. You don't have to be it doesn't have to be a Jack. You
Yeah.
You could do what JT and Jack did without,
Yeah, you can put him. You can put him at wide end. I mean, you can line him up at end. The problem is he's just not going to be durable to last the whole game.
Just put more weight on him. Put more weight on him.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to put more weight on him because I mean they're just going to run the ball at him and wear him down. That's why I say if they're going to do that, put him at end, bring him in on third down and long. Rotate him in. There's nothing wrong with that. Get him some. That's a fresh pair of legs in there to rush the passer.
Oh, absolutely. And more importantly, I think that he can become an every down because that's what Larry said he wants CJ to be, more of an every down. Now, CJ, I think, has 2 more years left in the program. I think he does. He has 2 more years left in the program, so he could probably still be able to do it. But again, I just hate it when Ohio State does this with guys like CJ. Like, we're blaming them, but we're blaming the player, but not the coaches for setting him up for that failure. Again, I'm going to put that on Ryan Day. I'm going to put that on this coaching staff. You should have set him up from the beginning. You managed to do it with Mitchell Melton, who came in as a linebacker, but you knew he wasn't a freaking linebacker. You knew he was an edge rusher. How would you not see this with CJ Hicks? He may be a freaky athlete. That doesn't mean he understands linebacker. He's just like Mitchell Melton, just like those other guys. You got to understand that.
Well, he played linebacker in high school. The thing it was basically they told him see ball, get ball. I mean, he wasn't a traditional. I mean, their defense was basically he was an attack linebacker. He didn't read keys. He just went after, and you can't do that in college.
Yeah, I mean, for Ohio State, I think that's what they should have done is just put him at edge because that's what he's best at. Because at edge, you don't have to do a whole lot of reading. You have to be able to react, but you have to be able to really react and get stops. But it's not to the extent in which you have to do it at linebacker because the linebacker is much tougher. I
mean, I played defensive end, and you don't have much to read. I mean, you got one gap to contain, and it's basically, it's easy compared to linebacker. Yeah, linebacker, you're reading a lot of different keys. There's a lot that goes to it, and you got to think. You got to be really, think fast on your feet. So I can see why he was having problems with it. And if he'd never done it before or had to do that, it's going to be tough. Especially college defenses are so more complicated than what high school defenses are.
Oh, absolutely. That's actually one of the bigger problems is if you realize that, put him at edge rusher. That's better for him. Or better yet, just have him as a stand-up edge. Do with him what Penn State did with Abdul Carter. He was a linebacker, but he was just pass rushing. Yeah. That's what you do with CJ Hicks. Then you move him down the D-line like Penn State did with Abdul Carter. You build him up and then you move him down. And then at that point, you could just have him be an every down edge rusher. Every down outside linebacker. That's what he can be.
I mean, I get it. He's so athletic and he's got all these physical tools that you think, hey, he's going to be an awesome linebacker. He'll be perfect. But you know what? He just didn't have it. And that's okay. Some people don't have that.
Yeah, not everybody does. Again, it depends on the mental side of it, though, too. It depends on mental because if you don't have the mental, it's going to be very, very hard for you to do it. That's why I don't blame him because it's like I could see it from the minute he stepped on the field. Like, okay, he clearly doesn't get what he's doing. He clearly doesn't understand how to play linebacker. He just needs to do that. Because when you look at, like, for instance, Baron Browning's numbers, because I already have that up too. His time at Ohio State, he actually had it pretty rough too. He started off pretty rough.
I mean, that guy was a physical freak.
He's a physical freak, but if you look at like his numbers at Ohio State, like just say his numbers at Ohio State, it didn't look like it. It really didn't. Like I'm actually looking at it now. His first set of years at Ohio State, very similar to CJ Hicks. Yeah, 2017. He didn't do much. He's a lot like CJ Hicks the first 2 years of his career, and then his third year he got more productive, and his final year he had more production as well. But it's not like to the level in which you would like it to be, because we all still could see that okay, there's still some issues. But once he got to the NFL, we finally kind of started to see what he could be. Right, we started finally to see, okay, this is the linebacker that we've been looking to see, because we all look at Brandon Brown like, what the hell was this at Ohio State? All that athleticism he got. It's the same thing with Jerome Baker. His time at Ohio State, actually, he started off pretty slow too. Eventually, he got there because I think eventually Ohio State started putting him in position to see the same way they did with Baron Browning. Like they finally realized, hey, we gotta stop. We gotta stop putting it with this. We gotta stop putting this kid in this situation. Let's do him more like this. It's the same thing with as well. Jonathan Cooper, all those guys, they all started slow at Ohio State. So when Ohio State,
Cooper had some injury problems, though. I mean, issues. But
yeah, but
he
it's
played
like
great. He played a great defensive end, and he kind of transitioned outside linebacker in the NFL. So
I say more so because actually on his thing it says he played linebacker here at Ohio State, but they started using him as an edge rusher more so because I'm looking at his first 3 years is just like CJ Hicks, and then his final set of years is where he finally did more.
Yep, they had him on the edge rushing a lot.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is do CJ Hicks like those guys? Because
and Justin Hilliard was another one that was a big freaky guy, man. He was built like a tank. That dude was gigantic.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that CJ Hicks's move to edge will help him become more productive to the point where I want Ohio State first, build his body up, get him some more weight before you put him in there at every down. Like he's got to be able to put some weight on before you do that. And I hope that this does help him succeed moving forward because he needs this. He really does.
What up, Podfather?
Yo, what up, Eric? Hey, guys, make sure that you guys subscribe to the OHL podcast. And on April 6th, I will be on the show. So tune in for that one.
Hey, guys, when you leave here tonight, 8 o'clock, head over to the Ohio Pod for the call-in show. Eric and Chris do such a great job on that show, and Corey. And when they have JR on, they're all great.
Yep. All right, so Maze Madman, you doofus. He says Michigan is the blue blood in response to me saying they're not really they're kind of not really blue blood by surface because of the 80 years of BS they've done. Obviously, like they've done nothing. I've said this before. So then he decides to make a video. Mello shouted me out in that. Thank you, Mello. And I decided to pretty much put it on this fool's head as to why Michigan is not no goddamn the blue blood program of the sport. They're not. I'm sorry, they're not. They are like Texas, in my opinion. They are a team that has been wildly disappointing for the longest time. If you ask me, if you really want me to start, it starts with like D-line production in the NFL. Michigan's defensive line production isn't very good in the NFL. Like, let's just start there. Like, if you want to talk about just blue bloods, let's start with the NFL. Michigan, y'all players are trash in the NFL. They are. They're absolute dog crap. As a matter of fact, you guys like to brag about how you have great defensive linemen and great offensive linemen, and that Ohio State doesn't match yours. So explain to me why in the trenches you don't have as many trench players starting as Ohio State. Explain to me on that one. Because, again, you look at the NFL production through 17 weeks, Ohio State has more than you. Way more. And they have way more players starting in the trenches than Michigan. So please tell me exactly what do y'all do?
When was the last time any of their trench people got drafted in the first round besides Hutchinson probably.
Yeah, Hutchinson. He's the only other one.
But offensive lineman, I think Cesar Ruiz was the last lineman that was offensive lineman that went in the first round, and he was a center.
Yep.
I also want to point this out because they claim to be such a blue blood. The guy that they build a statue of and they name a hall after, Mr. Bo Schembechler. How many national championships did he win up there? I mean,
0.
I'm sorry. He had to have what, like 5
0.
or 6?
Nope,
No.
0.
But he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's a blue blood.
That's only because of his time with Woody Hayes and the 5 natties that he won.
I mean, go look at his bowl record. He was horrible in bowls.
Right.
I mean, below 500. I mean, look at Jim Harbaugh's bowl record. He had
0-6.
He had two playoff wins, and them are probably going to be vacated
or forfeited because Justice Bureau actually made some comments on his tweet that it's a potential that the NCAA might forfeit the victories, is what he's hearing from his sources. Again, he's not outward saying it, but he does have an encrypted messages where it sounds like that's where the NCAA is heading, which would be so devastating for Michigan.
You know what's funny is I was thinking, we're having this little talk about blue bloods, and I noticed something because we're both NFL fans. Look at the Lion fans. They celebrate their past, but they haven't been good since the 50s.
Right.
And it's kind of like Michigan, they hang their hat on the past. I mean, if you're a true blue blood, you don't go through 50 years of being irrelevant. I'm sorry, or being.
You don't go through 80 years of doing that.
I mean, you have one good team in '97. I mean, where you win a co-championship. I mean, you weren't even the undisputed champion. One poll didn't even have you as the best team that year. That's why you're a co-champion.
Exactly.
People might not understand this, but back then they had two polls. It was the coaches poll and the AP poll. And if the AP poll and the coaches poll were different, they would have co-champions. And that year, Nebraska was undefeated, and so was Michigan. And Nebraska played a much tougher, schedule than Michigan did.
Ever. And Eric, I'm going to say this. From a historical standpoint, they are. From a historical standpoint. But if you really want to talk about blue blood, we all look at Nebraska as a blue blood, but we don't talk about them as such, because what have they done? I mean, they've done more than Michigan. But, you can't be, in my opinion, a blue blood that has done little to nothing for 80 years. You can't be that irrelevant.
I mean, they'll always be considered that because of the past. I mean,
right.
Honestly, he wants to say they are the blue blood. Nah. Sorry. I mean, I would put Alabama over them in a heartbeat. I mean, and Alabama went through a down period where they were, not that good.
Yeah, I mean, Steely basically just said that 8 of their natties they had is basically back when rugby rules football in the 1890s. And Eric, you said, can you lose your blue blood status? What do you still consider Nebraska one? Because honestly, I think the blue bloods are locked regardless. But let's be real, I can't, when I look at Nebraska, there's a reason we don't talk about them as much as we used to. Because they're not the same team they once were. But I'm going to tell you this. Like I said, I think they did more than Michigan from the 70s to the 90s. And even in the 2000s, they did more than this program. You can still be a blue blood, but you could be like Texas, who is the most disappointing of all the blue bloods because they've accomplished very little.
Oh, I say USC's been on a very downward spiral since Pete Carroll left. I mean,
yeah, but they were still
really rocky times through the 80s too.
Yeah, but beforehand they were still a great program. It's just that once
70s, 60s,
it's like once Pete Carroll left and the sanctions hit, USC is when their program went downhill, and this is during the 2000s. So even beforehand, and let's be real, I still would think of USC more of a blue blood than Michigan because they've done more in the 2000s, at least from a long period of time, more so than Michigan ever did.
Now, one thing that's hanging over Michigan though is, would a blue blood cheat?
No.
I mean, let's see what happens with this investigation. Let's see when the punishment comes out. I want to see but I just want to see all the evidence laid out and see how far this thing goes.
It goes so much deeper because Michigan is doing everything they can to keep it from getting out because they don't want that in no way getting out because they know it will destroy them. The other thing is, for Ohio State, look at what they've done in their playoff run. Their playoff run, they have beaten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 10 programs in all of it on their way to a natty, and they basically dominated in a way we've never seen. Indiana, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas, and Oregon. Georgia is the only one they did not play. Imagine if they did play Georgia. That would be something. And think about it, too. When you look at Ohio State's entire history, how many top 5 matchups have we played in already this year? We played 3 in the regular season, and then we played Notre Dame, we played Texas, Oregon. That's another 3. We played
Tennessee.
6.
Tennessee was top 10. I mean,
yeah, they were top 10. I'm talking about top 5.
Oh, top 5. Okay.
Yeah, top 5. Top 5 matchups. We pretty much played 6 this season and won 5 out of the 6, which is unbelievable. That's never been done. But Michigan will never do that either.
But according to them, it was a watered down system,
BS.
Well, if it was so watered down, how come you didn't make the playoffs then?
Exactly.
If it was so easy to make the playoffs like they're claiming, why did you not make it?
If you want to talk about a watered down system, go back to last year. Last year was a down year of college football. Y'all had the weakest path. Ohio State had the toughest path.
Exactly.
Not only that, but even too, if you compare Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State with their Rose Bowl victory against Oregon, they are now second for the most Rose Bowl wins, only trailing USC. They could probably get more than that, all because USC's down right now. So,
well, the thing is, like I said, back in the 70s, I mean, they used to have that rule where no Big Ten team could go back-to-back years. So there's probably a lot of years Ohio State should have went to the Rose Bowl and they couldn't go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was utterly stupid, by the way.
Then there was also the year. Help me out, Eric. I was trying to tell TG, Matt, help me out too, Steely. What year was it when they were undefeated and the Board of Academics would not let Ohio State take the invitation to the Rose Bowl? I know it was like 1960. I want to say 60 or maybe 62. One of those years. It was early 60s. They were undefeated, and the Board of Trustees were jealous that Woody was getting too much power, and they thought they weren't taking that football to overcome, being the most important thing over the academics.
Yeah. Oh, he does say you can't lose your blue blood status, by the way. And it's possible. It's absolutely true. And he said he'll look it up, by the way. But also, if you want to also talk about it, like the top 25 college football program over the last 25 years, take a guess where Michigan's ranked.
Not even on the top 25, are they?
They are, but just barely ahead of Penn State. Just barely. They're just barely ahead of Penn State. Barely. And it's actually pretty funny because both of them are ranked in the top 20, but they're really lucky within this because they're actually not far off from losing their status because they're not far off from the Texas A&M Aggies or the Virginia Tech Hokies or even TCU. Like, you're not even far off from them teams, or Iowa for that matter. You're not that far off from them teams. You're really not, which is really saying something. Whereas if you take
51.
Right. So if you really take a look at it from the top 25 programs over the past 20 years, even the past 25 years, Ohio State pretty much ranks in the top 2. Obviously, we're number 2 to Alabama.
GG, if you look, last 50 years, we've had 2 losing seasons. 50 years, you've had two losing seasons.
Literally, they brought that up too when discussing those teams. They said Ohio State only had 2 losing seasons, both were due to something completely stupid, such as like the tattoo scandal in 2011.
Tattoo scandal. One was John Cooper's when he took over for Earl Bruce, and that was, that was a whole cluster F.
Yeah, that was as well. And they said those are the only 2 losing seasons, which for most programs, including a school like Michigan, that's a great season. For most, literally.
I forget how many. I mean, we've only lost 3 games. I forget how many times.
Yeah. Do you want to know who's like ahead of Michigan on this as well?
You think Alabama has to be ahead of them?
I mean, I already said Alabama and Ohio State are the top 2, but like I'm talking about the programs that are ahead of him that you wouldn't think.
Did you say the last 50 years?
Last 20 to 25 years.
Oh, Notre Dame.
Yep.
Florida State.
Oh yeah.
LSU.
Yes.
USC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Nebraska is because they haven't been that good for a long time.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but you would be shocked to see the ones that are ahead of them.
Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon's obviously ahead of them.
Because Oregon's been good the last few years. I mean,
yeah, but like I said, you really finna laugh at some of these ones.
Oh man,
let me tell you the 2 that are the most shocking.
Okay.
Because you would be so fun, you would laugh so hard. Wisconsin is ahead of them, and the Oklahoma State Cowboys.
You know what? I'm not surprised because Gundy's had a heck of a run out there. I mean,
I am because I'm like that. Listen, Oklahoma State, like I get they've been a good team, but not that good in the 20 years I've been around. And the fact that they're that ahead of you is so asinine. Not only that,
They were averaging double-digit wins every year. I mean,
that is so bad. As in Wisconsin, look, I get Wisconsin's had their great runs, but they have not been this consistent. They've had winning seasons, but they haven't been that good. They've had seasons like from 2014,
from the mid-90s on, when Barry Alvarez took over, he built that program up, and they were pretty rock solid, where they were averaging.
Yeah, and not only that, they have way more winning seasons than Michigan ever did on consecutive seasons. Now, it ended last year, but that was funny to me. I'm like, really, dog? Michigan, y'all are ass. Guess who else is ahead of them as well?
I mean, Oklahoma State. I mean, that Big 12 conference. I mean, Mike Gundy. I know everybody makes fun for his little rant he went on where I'm a man, I'm 40, which is hilarious. Mm-hmm. But he is a good coach, even though he has a mullet. I'll give it to him. But they were averaging double-digit wins every year. So, I mean, not surprised. I mean, I'll give him his due. I mean,
heck yeah. I mean,
Steely's got one. Boise State's probably one too.
What's funny is Boise State, they're behind them, but they're not that far. They're not that far away to get ahead. They're not that far away to the point where they couldn't get ahead of them. I'm gonna tell you that now. They can get ahead of them.
Boise ran off.
Yeah. The other program that's ahead of him, if I told you Auburn would you be shocked?
No, because they went on a good run for a while.
How long ago was that?
With Cam Newton, and before Cam Newton, when they had a year where they went undefeated and they got left out in the national championship game. There's three now. That's why they wanted the playoffs, because there was 3 undefeated teams at the end of the year, and Auburn got left out. I forget what year that was, but there was.
Yeah. So
Tommy Tuberville had some good teams.
So the other teams that are also ahead of them is Clemson, Florida, LSU. Even though I'm not gonna lie, LSU to me, they've had their great teams, but it's mostly been just like the 2003, 2007, 2011, 2019 teams, because every other season they're usually like very rocky to me. Very rocky. They've had not so great seasons. Even now they don't. Like, they're not that consistent, yet they're way ahead of Michigan.
Bootzilla, Jason Campbell. That's a name from the past. He put one of the many quarterbacks that played for the Browns. He went to Auburn, and they had a great team with Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown. They went undefeated. And they're the ones that made the Wildcat offense. I mean,
yeah, LSU's in the top 5, by the way, which I found so funny, because I'm like, they've only had 4 good years for the most part that you can remember. Yeah, they've had their winning seasons, but it's like, dude.
Well, when Les Miles was there, he took them to a couple of natties.
Yeah. Georgia's also ahead of them. They're number 4. Oklahoma. See, this one was what shocked me, that Oklahoma's in the top 3.
Stoops had a good run.
When you look at like where, like I know Stoops' run, and then they had those 3 years on Lincoln Riley, but outside of that, Oklahoma ain't done nothing.
I died after Lincoln Riley left.
Yeah, like they died after that, but even beforehand, they weren't that great. But it's like that was so surprising. Obviously, like I said, the top 2, but the fact that Oklahoma's in the top 3 was so funny to me. I see it. Look, I could buy them be a top 10 in the last 20 years, even top 15, top 3. That's kind of that's funny. And like I said, with Michigan, you can't even get to where Oklahoma at, bro. You even ranked behind the Texas Longhorns, and I get the Longhorns had their fair share of good runs here and there, but we just talked about they're the most disappointing blue blood of all of them.
But if you look, when Lloyd Carr, at the end of Lloyd Carr's tenure, he started going down. Then they hired Rich Rod, which one even, then they really dropped down. Then they hired freaking Brady Hoke. And then they freaking hired Hairball, and that even his first, how many years did he lose to Ohio State? How many years in a row did he lose to Ohio State? His first,
like 6 straight times.
5 or 6 years. So I mean, I can see where they dipped off big time. Then they had to cheat to get back to relevance. So
yeah, it was super funny to me. I said the fact that y'all had Oklahoma, they had me laughing. So thinking about that too, because when I look at where Michigan is ranked, I said, man, it will not take long before they start dropping down these rankings, because they are not that far ahead of a lot of these teams. These teams have a chance to really get them. Like the fact that you have an opportunity to get passed up by Virginia Tech for the past 20 to 25 years, TCU. You also could get passed by Boise. Iowa, who they've had their good runs, but let's be honest, because their offense sucks so bad, it'd be like, dude. Missouri, who's been bad at times. Tennessee, who's been irrelevant. You're not even that far away from Tennessee. And then you also got Notre Dame, who's behind them, and then Utah, the Utah Utes.
Well, Utah's always pretty solid, and so is who did you just name? I was gonna say he was pretty solid for Iowa. Iowa always goes about 10-3. I mean,
in the Big Ten West.
Yeah, I mean,
and then this year they did have a good record, but it's like, but still, it's like you should be at least in the top 10, but you're not. And like I said, you're gonna get passed up by schools that aren't even on your level from a historical standpoint.
How do you not? One thing I can't understand is if you're Iowa, how do you not get a quarterback? when you're Wisconsin, how do you not get in Penn State? How do you not get receivers? How do you not get playmakers? You got a line. Oh my Lord! I mean, it's just frustrating.
Oh, we're gonna get to Penn State in a minute because that is super funny. And then you get to like this, where I pulled up the website where you can compare two teams at the same time in their history. Now, we all know in the rivalry, Michigan does have 62 wins, but we all know that when the cheating scandal comes, we'll know the verdict of whether or not it's vacated or forfeited, because once that goes away, these past 3 years, Ohio State can either have a 4-1 record against Michigan or 1-1, meaning, and Michigan will pretty much be back in the 50s once that happens, and Ohio State will have a chance to get them. But I looked over at their overall history, and guess how many categories Ohio State dominates compared to Michigan? Like, seriously, take a guess how many categories each one has.
How many categories is there?
There's 12.
I say Ohio State beats them in 8 of the 12.
Yeah. How many do you think Michigan has total?
4. I think it's...
Yeah. No. They don't have 9. They don't have 8. They don't have any. They don't have 4. Ohio State dominates in 9 of the categories. 9 out of the 12. Michigan only has 3.
Well, read the categories so everybody knows what you're talking about.
All-time record.
Okay.
It's also all-time. They also beat them in bowl game appearances, bowl game record, consensus All-Americans, Heisman winners, draft picks, NFL draft picks, NFL first round picks, week in AP polls, and weeks at number 1 in the AP poll, and conference championships along with the Natties and all-time wins. And Michigan only dominates Ohio State. Michigan only dominates Ohio State. Not really dominate. They actually have a slight edge. Slight edge is probably the better way for me to put it. A slight edge in all-time wins, national championships, and the conference titles. Those are the only 3 categories they have right now.
I mean, they brag about having 1,000 wins, but I'm like, you guys played 60 more games than we have ever.
Oh, no, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter that they play 60 more games, because here's the truth. Had their program kept going down, they would be right where Nebraska is, because Nebraska played for just as long as them, and their all-time wins are low as heck.
So I'm just saying they played a lot longer than Ohio State had.
They did.
When Ohio State started, Michigan was a superpower. I mean, and back then you're playing teams like the YMCA, you're playing club teams, and they're counting them as wins. And I'm just like, come on.
Right. But the truth is they're going to be behind when the NCAA punishments come out. They're going to be behind Ohio State in all-time wins. So Michigan fans can't even brag about that. Not only that, but they're going to take away your natties, and then they're going to take away your conference titles. Meaning, because Ohio State has 39, when they take away your conference titles, you'll have 42. Meaning Ohio State only needs to win 3 conference titles, 3 to basically tie you. They only need 2 natties to beat yours, to really tie yours, and then 3 to beat it. And then all-time wins, they're going to be ahead of you. So those are the only 3 categories you dominate, and all those are in danger of being taken over by Ohio State. Every other category, Ohio State absolutely dominates them. It's not even freaking close.
There's one thing I want to bring up today. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but Bryce Underwood, he met LeBron James. And he talked a little trash to LeBron, and he said when he gets to Michigan, Ohio State's run is over.
It is because guess what? All we have to do is just lose one game and we're still winning the Natty. So F off, dude. We're not Michigan. That's number one. Number two, when those sanctions hit, you leaving. So let's not talk. You know you leaving. You ain't staying for that. Okay? If this was the 4-team playoff, sure, I'd be a little bit more worried. With the 12 team, I don't give a damn if we lose to Michigan anymore. We could go win the Natty. Because Michigan will not be competing for another Natty for years to come. If anything, they'll be down in the dumpster. But it's like, because, dude, if you're not winning if you're not winning as many games as Ohio State, we all know you're going to get bowl bans, so you're not going to stay there. So I don't buy it. I think he's just saying it to please the Michigan fan base because it just because he's getting the money, because he's got to say these things in order for him, I think, to get paid. So at the end of the day, I don't think he really means it. I don't think he really cares. I don't think he wants to be there. I think he's just there for the money.
I can't believe they put him on the cover of the video game.
I can because the guy who's developing the video game is a Michigan fan. Like, of course they would do that.
Man, you haven't proved crap. You shouldn't be on the cover of the freaking video game.
You really shouldn't. That's just what's going to tick people off. If not, it's really going to tick off a lot of players. Like, what the hell did he do to get on the cover?
He took a bag of money from a guy who's rich.
Exactly. That's exactly what he did. Like, and that's what's really finna tick off a lot of these players is like this guy getting here just because the guy who's developing the game is a Michigan fanboy. That's it. That's it. And like I said, like the thing that really brings me joy is the fact that Ohio State, when they take away those natty, because again, if they make those forfeits, Ohio State has, I believe, I'm doing this right, 54 wins in the rivalry game. I think if you take away those 3 that they have, Michigan would have about 59, I would say, is how much you'd be taken away from them if you take away those 3 years. So that means Ohio State's inches closest of getting those wins back. But not only that, like I said, they take away your natty. Ohio State only needs 2 natties to tie you. 1 more natty, which would be 3, to beat it overall. Man. And I know for Ohio State, listen, I know for a fact for Michigan, that would be the most damning thing in the world because you're behind Ohio State in all-time wins. Now they're beating you out in natty titles, and now they're beating you out in conference titles. Like, imagine if Ohio State's dominating all the categories. The only thing you have to brag about right now is the wins you have in the rivalry. That's it. That's all you would have to brag about. But answer me this. If things go bad for your team, how long can you brag about that?
Yeah. How much longer were you going to go, you know?
And not only that, but think about it. If Ohio State is winning national championships and they don't even have to, like, you know, they don't even have to win the rivalry to win it, to get the natties, how much more does that rivalry win record really mean at that point?
That still means something.
I'm talking about for them, like, I'm talking about, like, as far as, like, because think about it. It may mean something from the grand scheme of the rivalry, but, like, let's be real. Overall, it doesn't mean anything to Ohio State because it's like, okay, we got the natties. That's all we care about. Because the game, I think the biggest thing when it comes to the game is it used to be the one thing that would stop us from getting to the national championship. Yeah. It would be the one make or break.
Yeah. It's not like
but
that anymore.
It's not anymore. Like, So now it's like, in order for this to mean something, I think that Michigan would have to play at the level of Ohio State to get to the playoffs every year. And I think we all know that's not going to happen. So the fact that Ohio State actually dominates 9 of the 12 categories and you only dominate 3 is crazy. And think about it. The ones you dominate are the ones they can easily beat you in. I mean, like I said, the all-time wins, they're going to beat you in. The conference titles and the national titles, they're going to probably beat you in sooner. And I know for Michigan, that is the worst thing in the world. That they become a dynasty. Ohio State becomes a dynasty. Michigan will be miserable for years to come.
I'm here for it.
I'm here for that too. That's why I want that to happen. And I think we all know this is why they're not, like, because you can't be the Blue Blood program. Like, the Blue Blood program is either Bama or Ohio State. It's not Michigan. They're not in the same conversation. As a matter of fact, I'm interested to do this. I kind of want to see how they do against some of these other programs, actually.
I mean, what's funny is they still act like they are the program. They walk around with their noses in the air, act like they're so arrogant, and it's like they have nothing to be arrogant about.
Not at all.
I mean, I would be embarrassed. I mean, you disgrace the game of college football, and you guys still walk around like you're the thing, man. You're not.
Dude, think about it like this too. Like they're tied with Notre Dame in some categories.
They're an embarrassment. They embarrassed the Big Ten.
They do, as a matter of fact. And I'm actually checking it right now. Like they're tied with Notre Dame in like 6 categories. They obviously have the record. They obviously have it over Notre Dame and the all-time win percentage. All-time win percentage. They're ahead of them as far as the all-time record, but not by much. Not by much.
I mean, Notre Dame's. I consider Notre Dame more of a blue blood than them.
Yeah, and guess what? They're going to be going back to be tied with Notre Dame for the 11 natties because they have 12 right now. They're going to be tied with Notre Dame for 11. Obviously, Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference. So of course, they ain't got no conference titles. That'd be the only thing Michigan. Honestly, the only things Michigan will have over them from the way it's looking is literally the bowl games appearances that they have, which probably won't exist for long because Notre Dame, I think, will have chances to make the playoffs pretty much almost every year.
Yeah.
The conference titles, just because they don't play in a conference. And I would say the all-time win percentage, because even though when we do take away all their wins, they're still going to be ahead of Notre Dame. So those are going to be the only categories plus weeks in the poll. That's the only advantages they have over Notre Dame as those things. Everything else, they're going to pretty much be, but I think they're going to be below Notre Dame in all-time record. I also think, they're already below them in their bowl game record, which is so frightening because they're so below 500. Michigan is.
God, they're horrible.
Yeah, they are. Notre Dame's ahead of them in consensus All-American. NFL draft picks, they're first, obviously. Heisman winners, first round draft picks, as well as weeks in the AP poll. They're well ahead of Michigan in that. So it's like, that was super funny. And then I ain't got to compare them to Bama because I think we all know Bama destroys them literally in every single category. They do. Like, Bama destroys them in every category. They do. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just go ahead and pull it up anyway. Just because of how funny this is. Let me see. How many categories? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, wow. So, okay. So, all-time wins. Oh, no. Nebraska. Oh, Alabama's going to be ahead of them in all-time wins. So, I'm going to make that like 8 categories. Consensus All-Americans, surprisingly, Alabama's actually behind Michigan, but not for long because it's only 86 to 88. They just need like 3 more and they're ahead of Michigan. NFL draft picks, they're behind Michigan, but only by 3. Only by 3. Me. Yeah, they're behind them only by 3, which they could still get more. And in first round NFL draft picks, obviously that's Alabama.
Sure.
Weeks in the AP poll, that's where Michigan does have them right now. That's the only place where they do. I don't know for how long, but I'd assume if their organization goes down even slower, it will. Conference titles is the only other thing I think they have Alabama beat in. So the only things they would have them beat in would be conference championships, the weeks in the AP poll, and then every other one. Alabama, I think, beats them because they're going to beat them in NFL draft picks. They're going to beat them in consensus All-Americans. And like I said, when the all-time wins come down, they're going to beat them in the all-time wins because they're going to be behind both Bama and Ohio State, which is going to be funny as heck. That's going to be funny. Like, they'll be behind both of them. So that means you only have like literally. So that means Bama dominates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the 12. And you only have 2. That's funny sick. I would keep going. This is too funny. I really want to see this now because now I'm going to start comparing them to other blue bloods at this point. I'm going to start doing this because this was funny because this is what I like doing. Let me see. Who's the other blue bloods? USC, right?
USC will have a lot of more Rose Bowls than us probably because they played in a crap load of them out there.
Yeah, but they're also a way better football team, so that's not really an argument that they will beat the crap out of Michigan. I think in a lot of these. I just want to see how many. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, man. It's actually way more even. So, like, the only 2 programs that really are kicking their ass is literally, even though, again, is literally Ohio State and Bama. But like I said, I don't think it'd be long before these teams start beating them in some of the categories that they are anyway. Because they got them in conference titles. Michigan does, but that's only by like the same amount as Ohio State almost. So like if USC wins more, they actually will be ahead of Michigan.
Thing is, Notre Dame wanted to come to the Big Ten, and Michigan was the reason they couldn't get in.
Really?
So I mean,
probably because they're pissing down their pants, knowing what's gonna happen if they do.
Well, they didn't want them in because they didn't want them in the conference because they were Catholics.
You know what's funny too is like Texas still has like a perfect winning percentage against Michigan as well, which is absolutely funny to me. I'm like, y'all have never beaten Texas, not once. That is crazy.
You know who else they haven't beaten? Appalachian
else?
State.
Of course. Of course. That made sense. Yeah, so like as far as obviously like, yeah, no, like they're kind of closer with some of the other blue bloods, but like Bama and Ohio State are kicking their butts.
Exactly.
And here's the funny thing. There's still like a chance for them to get surpassed by all these other programs though that I'm looking at, that I'm comparing them to right now. There's still a chance they can. So yeah, no, they're not really a blue blood because a lot of this comes down to what they did in the past, all the way back in the past. So it's like the fact that you have a chance to get surpassed by multiple of these programs is ridiculous.
Well, I just kind of laugh because they remind me of Cleveland Brown fans because, you know, the Browns had all their success before the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of NFL people that don't consider anything before the Super Bowl legit. So, I mean, that's like Michigan had all their success except, you know, 1 year before, you know.
To be honest, I never considered anything Michigan did before black people ever started playing, before football helmets were a thing. I don't ever count that. Like, to me, they're well behind everybody else. But again, with the blue blood thing, they're going to take the overall historical standpoint even before that stuff happened. But I'm never going to count it.
I mean, you can go look at the way the game was played back then. The rules were a lot different. It's not what we're playing now, but I mean, it was college football, so you got to factor that in, even though it's, you know, I wouldn't even factor in the wins that Ohio State had back then.
Yeah, and even if you didn't, Ohio State would still have bigger wins and be way more dominant than this program and most programs today. That's what's even crazier.
I mean, they had a run there in the 40s, and you know where they were the team. I'll give it to them. They were.
The dude on man, thanks for the 20. If you could turn back time as far as you can recall, which play would you want to re-run? How about 2011 against Michigan and Braxton Miller when Braxton Miller missed that wide open touchdown that could have helped Ohio State win the game. That one I would.
Let's see. Well, what play would I? One play. Probably be the field goal against Michigan this year.
Yeah, the field goals, yeah.
One of the field goals.
Oh, it's not just one. I think we could do more too. If I had to do another one, I would say the Georgia game in 22, that one.
I mean,
as well as the Clemson one as well. Like the Clemson plays, there's like a couple plays I like to have back in that one. The main one being the Chris Olave when he ran the wrong route that got that interception.
I'll tell you guys one. 1996 when Sean Springs fell and Ty Streets caught that touchdown pass and Ohio State lost 13-9 to the team up north. And we ended up finishing number 2 in that year. I would rerun that and, you know, have them not fall.
Yeah, that's what
Dennis Marr. Yes. Said the same thing.
Yep. I honestly, he also says Spring falling down against Scum.
Yeah,
he's right. Yep. He's right, because it is. You know for a fact the NCAA is going to screw him because they want to. All right, so the next thing we're going to get into is the other set of news is actually, we're going to get into a little bit of Buckeye news on the NFL side with Justin Fields signing with the Jets, reuniting with Garrett Wilson, as well as the Jets signing Josh Myers, another former Buckeye who played on that team with them. He's also reuniting with Jeremy Ruckert as well, who's on the team. And there's talks of the Jets being interested in Chris Olave. So how would y'all feel about a team with this many Buckeye players on it? Because some people are saying it's like the Nova Knicks. You could have the Ohio State Jets.
Hey, I hope it works out for him. I want Justin to succeed. I love Justin Fields. He's one of my favorite players. I like that kid to have his chance, because I think he got screwed by the Bears.
He did.
He's never put in a good, fair situation. I think this is his chance to shine, and he's going to hook back up with Garrett and Jeremy there too, and they have a decent running game, I think. So.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I said, and here's the funny thing. I think Aaron Glenn is the perfect. So far, I think they're doing things right with the perfect fit, because I think Aaron Glenn knows how good Justin is from the last time he played against them. So I'm actually super excited to see what they do with him, because I hope he does. I've hated the Bears because I said to myself that the whole reason they screwed him was because they wanted Caleb Williams. He was not their quarterback. like really. As a matter of fact, Bootzilla says the same thing. Bears get on my nerves going out for Caleb and not Justin. That's like, look at what they do with that team for Caleb but not Justin. Like, really, dog?
The thing you brought up about Olave, though, I'm a little worried about Olave because he's had a lot of concussions. And that last one, I won't lie, scared the heck out of me because it looked like he was dead. I mean, he took such a nasty hit. I just don't want the guy to be a vegetable before he's 30 years old.
I hope he's not either. But again, a lot of those concussions, I've watched them, is because Derek Carr kept throwing him into situations where he kept getting concussed. Like, you're supposed to throw your wide receivers away from the danger, not towards it. So that's why he's been getting concussed, because his quarterback does that, whereas Justin will never do that to any of his receivers at all. He knows better.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit of Buckeye news in the NFL. But there might be more coming out, because there's been some and yeah, Lunatic, you're right. JSN is now wide receiver 1 in Seattle, which go ahead.
Yeah.
Dennis, Jets take a Mecca? Probably.
I don't know. We'll see.
Especially because they do need like another third receiver too. I mean, they got a good young guy on there, but they're gonna need to like really establish that receiving unit, because they got some issues. They got, besides Garrett, there's no one else. So, and Jeremy, they also know they need another tight end, because I think they're gonna try to get Tyler Warren. So, because obviously he's the best tight end. It's either him or that Bowling Green tight end.
That kid from Bowling Green's nasty. I think they could probably get him in the second or third round. So
probably. And if they do, that would be great.
That'd be great value for him. I mean, play him with Jeremy Rucker.
Dennis says, I want a Mecca in Seattle. I mean, him and JSN could work, especially because Mecca can play on the outside. So
they just signed Sam Darnold out there too, so that'd be interesting to see.
I
think Quinshawn goes to the Browns.
Lunatic. I want him in Vegas. You know what? With Chip Kelly, I wouldn't mind that. Gino, we'll see. Tyler, yeah, Harold Fang.
That's the tight end from BGA.
Yeah, from Bowling Green. I think, I can agree with you. I think it's between him and Tyler. I think him and Tyler are two of the best, without a doubt.
Hey, how about Eddie George going to Bowling Green? Cheer for the man. Come on.
Tyler, we have a Michigan update from where? Let us know. Put it in the chat. So we're gonna talk a little bit of Penn State news. Hey, look, Lunatic, if Howard gets drafted to the Vegas Raiders, I will be super freaking happy.
Hey, TG, we got 7:00 here, so.
Yeah, I know. I see.
Okay.
All right, so we could talk a little bit of Penn State. I guess we can actually hold off on that and start talking about the Buckeye news.
Because it's on Scoop, he said, so.
Yeah. So, okay, so we're going to pretty much talk about the Buckeye news latest, which is, and say the Penn State one for last. So the Buckeye news latest is actually surrounding the fact of Ohio recruits leaving the state of Ohio. Now, we heard Dev and Mello talk about it. We're going to talk about it, get our opinions. So, Sean, let's start with you. What you think of it?
First, I want to give a shout out to Doug Zilla for coming in the chat. I haven't seen him in a while. Good to have you back, brother. We missed you.
Nice seeing you again, Doug.
Way to come back, Zilla. Love you, brother. I'm a little perturbed, or a little worried, I would say, because Rock Hill and Victor Singleton, 2 lockdown corners, 5 stars in the state of Ohio, leaving the state. I mean, I hear Hill is very close with Trey McNutt and probably is going to head out to Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a little, I mean, that kind of worries me a little bit. I don't know if it's because maybe these kids see that the room's so stacked that they're not going to be able to get on the field right away.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe Oregon's just throwing the big bag of cash at them.
Both.
I mean, either way, Ohio State's going to have to change some of their strategy.
Honestly, I'm going to say this. I think for Ohio State, if you have Ohio kids that are going to do that, like if Albert Hill don't want to come here, just don't even bother. If they don't even bother, because you do have Ohio kids that want to carve their own path and do their own thing. They don't want to go to Ohio State. So if that's fine, don't chase them. Don't be like Michigan and be desperate. Please don't.
I get it.
My thing is I think for Ohio State, they'll care if you're an Ohio kid. If you're the type of kid who's going to do stuff for the money and you're not going to work hard, they do not want you here. They value culture first. This is what they did with Jake Cook because they took him. They have Jaden Ricketts in the 2026 class. They're only going to, if you're an Ohio guy and you fit their culture, they will take you. If you don't, they don't take you. They don't give a damn. You can leave the state for all they care. And look, the guys going to Oregon, the guys in the state of Ohio going to Oregon, I don't think worries Ohio State because I think for them, they know these guys aren't going to get developed properly at all. No. They're not because their careers are going to really take a hit. Their draft stock is definitely going to take a hit, mainly the defensive backs. Because when you go up against Ohio State, you better play your best. The only guy I think that really went to a pretty good spot where he could get developed is Victor Singleton and with Illinois with Brett Bielema. Because so what do you want about Brett? He's a great coach, and his coaches, they know how to develop. So that's where, and plus I think everybody has now the ability to recruit, across the nation. Like everybody's now nationwide recruits. That's not how it was before. It is this way now. So I think that, I think Ohio State could get away with losing a couple of kids to me in the state of Ohio, as long as you start with getting the 3 stars, the guys that won't leave. Guys who are great players like a Jaden Ricketts, they will stay, be developed, be engaged in the 4-year development plan. You could get the best guys from Ohio, but if they don't want to come here, just don't even bother. If you really want to build a foundation, start with the lower tier Ohio guys who can play, who you can develop, like a Bo Pang Miller. Those guys will stay. They believe in it. So to me, that's where your foundation starts, with the Ohio guys. But, it's going to start with, just starting with the lower guys, to me.
The thing is, don't wait too long either. Like Adam Guthrie, he would have went to Ohio State if they'd offered him right away. They waited too long with him.
Don't you realize that they didn't offer him because they said, you need to show us that you become more of a mauler? Because remember, he's a good pass blocker, but they need someone who can run block too. You need to put on more weight. You need to do more of this, because Ohio State don't just take anybody. You got to show them that you're willing to put in the work, like a Jake Cook, because they waited that long with Jake Cook. He still came here. Why? Because they told him, you need to do these things. He did that, and then they ended up offering him, and he committed right away. Because at Ohio State, you got to earn it. The same way you have to do with NIL money. You got to earn your way here, because they want a specific type of offensive lineman. They want the mean, nasty kind, the guys they know that can be maulers, because they need those type of guys.
I think Guthrie was good enough to get offered. I mean,
I think he was too, but I think they can still get him. I think they can still flip him, just because Clemson, it's so bad recruiting this early, because you guys will get flipped from you every time.
It's just,
you got to fight for them.
I think he's so upset that he's not going to flip. I mean, that was they had a chance at that Stargell kid that was a big mauler and a center, and they took Jake Cook, and they could have taken that kid too and played one at guard and one at center.
That's what I see it.
For some reason,
that's justified. I don't know why.
Know.
And by the way, Mike, if everything goes the way I think it will, Michigan probably won't be in a bowl game for a long period of time. And even if they do, they'll be losing it every year.
But it's just Stargell was a big miss by Fry. You're right, Devin. I mean, that kid was nasty. He wanted to be a Buckeye. I mean, it's the same thing with the running back that went to Oregon. He wanted to be a Buckeye too, but I think his parents kind of pushed him to go to Oregon for the bag, and that kid's probably not gonna pan out.
Yeah, he's not going to. And Dennis said, I think we dodged the bullet with Dorian Brew. Culture issues with that family. If there is, then a good thing then that we did miss out on them.
I'll tell you what I didn't like about Dorian Brew is he knew he was leaving his school, and he was leaving the night. He went to practice, and it was the night before the game, and he knew he was leaving the next day to go to Texas. He didn't tell anybody. He went to school, went to practice with all his buddies. Next day for school, he didn't show up. He didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell his coach, didn't tell his teammates, left his team high and dry. And you know what? That is, in my book, that's low. You're a scumbag.
Yeah, you really are. And Devin basically just said that his family wouldn't let him commit here when he wanted to. He actually wanted to commit here? Oh, okay. So that clearly is the parents, once again, being douchebags.
Well, his mom's in the Ohio State Hall of Fame.
So why is his parents not letting? Why is his family not letting him commit? The money? Why would she need the money? And whatever. Anyway, as a matter of fact, we can pretty much end this. We were supposed to talk about Penn State like we see at the last show, guys, but things kind of ran out of time because there was so much. We tried to start early, but had some issues. So, Dev, do you got? Not Dev. Sean, you got anything final to say? We could do the Penn State stuff on Sunday.
We'll do it on Sunday. I just want to thank everybody for checking us out. Everybody that always comes, thanks for the support. Great to see my boy Doug Zilla back in the house tonight. I missed you, buddy. Glad you're back. I'd like to thank our mods, Karis, Beth, and Vader for always keeping the chat great and clean. So, guys, until next time, I know I got nothing else to say. TG, you got anything?
Yeah. Dad basically said it was his dad that told him don't commit here. Okay, so now we know what it was. So I'm gonna start by saying, Dev, thank you for helping me today with the show, with all the issues we were having. And pretty much thank you, Buckeye Nation, for showing up. I know we kind of didn't put the show up early enough, but don't worry, we finally got some stuff figured out with StreamYard. So you'll be seeing me and Sean every Thursday. You'll also be seeing me and him on Sunday for call-in shows. So if you guys want to call in and talk, come in at what'd you say, 9, Sean, for you?
9
which would be 8 o'clock for my time here in Chicago. So come around then, and we will be we'll pretty much be here. So I hope everybody has a great day. Everybody enjoys Buckeye Scoop and the news that we have on Team Up North, because I'm not missing that. So let's just end this early and say, go Buckeyes, OH.
I-O.